I said, no, that's not the, and then it went up again. So finally I bit the bullet. I said, I'm going to quit gambling. I'm going to get in there and put it in my safe and not touch it. And so today it's worth at least 3 times what I paid for it. And my landlord, she's Lenore Reimer's Ranch out on 71. And at one time, she and her husband owned 8,000 acres of land right on Highway 71 at Pedernales River. And she's ready to sold some of it off. And one day I was over at her house, and she's my landlord. I rent from her. And she was also my 42 partner in playing dominoes. And we just smoked everybody that played with us. But I said, Lenore, I know this is minding your business, but how much money do you have in your checking account? She looked down, and I said, no, tell me, Lenore, I want to know. She said, it's over $1 million. I said, golly, you can't do that. And so I said, why don't you buy some more cows and then buy $500,000 worth of gold? Oh, I don't want to put that much in gold. I said, well, all right, the lowest I'm going to go is you got to buy $250,000 worth of gold. So she said, well, I don't know how to do it. I said, you just agree to do it, and I'll take care of everything. All you got to do is just sign your name, and it'll all be automatic. And so she bought $250,000 worth of gold, and it's more than doubled since she bought it. And so she's my friend when I see her. Couldn't go the other way, but I've been seeing this coming for a long time, and so there's almost no risk involved, or I wouldn't advise her to do it at all.
How's the rent?
I'm sorry?
How's the rent? She go up on her rent.
She treats you right.
But I've got a dear friend in California who's an attorney, Ellen Hudson Brown, that came up with a theory that if the Federal Reserve doesn't do right, Congress needs to just pass a law and the President sign it, just nationalizing the Federal Reserve. And they can legally do that because they created it with a law in 1913. And then they can take the national debt, and the interest on the national debt is something like $300 billion a year. And it's not exactly that, but it's close to it. And so, and this is owed to the Federal Reserve and to foreign countries like China and Japan and different nations around it. So we're real good at printing money. Once we own the Fed, we print enough money, then we buy back all of those bonds and treasury notes from those. We just give them cash and get those bonds back. So the term for that is we monetize our debt. Now that says we've created a lot of money. Well, we've also eliminated debt, and we've eliminated the interest on the debt, and it's a legal transaction. We actually have done that before. The Treasury Department called a particular treasury note because the interest was down at the point where it was advantageous to just buy those bonds back rather than pay the interest on it. So they did. So they set a precedent on it, but we can actually monetize our debt after we've taken control of the Federal Reserve. Now we also need to, because the national banks and all banks and all credit unions have the ability to create money and credit. So, and that's because of the fractional reserve system. And how that works is the Federal Reserve requires that if you're going to loan money, you must retain 10% in reserve to cover your exposure. So once we've nationalized the Federal Reserve, then we need to nationalize all national banks. So then all that's left are state banks and credit unions. And then to keep them from creating money and credit, we need to raise the reserve limit from 10% to 100%. So then Congress is the only body that can legally create money and credit. And now we have the financial system under control. Okay, now, later on in later chapters, I recommend one of the major example is, and I'll explain why later, that we need to bring every piece of military equipment and every person that is in our military service back to continental United States.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Immediately. And just think about the money that they spend overseas just buying cookies or cigarettes or whatever. Mm-hmm. If they were stationed here, they would buy it and support our local economy. But so if we bring all our military service and equipment back to continental United States, and if you need to do something, put them on the Mexican border. Let them patrol the Mexican border. That'll keep them busy. But in doing that, I think we can easily cut the Department of Defense budget in half. And that's $2.1 billion. Half of it. It's actually 402, so cut out half of it's 201 billion. Now, if we also, once you nationalize the Fed, nationalize all the national banks, if you take the money they earn in interest and loan it out to other banks, that is enough money that's equal to almost enough money to eliminate our income tax. In 2005, we paid $927 billion in income tax. All right, so we take $201 billion from the Department of Defense. If we eliminate the income tax, that's $11.4 billion right off. The interest on the debt is $451 billion. And assume that 1/2 of the interest that the banks earn would come into the Treasury Department, and that's minus $185 billion. And I've got another problem with NASA. Why are we thinking about sending another trip to the moon, or we're sending rockets to Mars or Venus or wherever? What is that going to do for you? What benefit are you going to gain from that? I mean, we gain computers because of NASA. But the fact that now they think there might be ice on the moon, let's send a bunch of rockets up there and see if we can find that ice. That will not affect our life in one way except add to our costs or our income tax. So I'm saying to take half of the NASA budget and just put it into the Treasury, and then tell the people at NASA, now you concentrate on the ocean, you concentrate on energy, anything that can affect us directly, but quit worrying about going to the moon. Quit worrying about going to Mars. And then I think my last chapter, or second to last chapter, is I recommend that we completely eliminate the CIA. That we completely repeal the 1947 National Security Act, which created the CIA. And if we have time, I'll cover some of that. So I'm assuming that the CIA's budget is something like $24 billion a year. So we start with a income tax of $927, and all these deductions are at $880 billion. So we can almost completely eliminate the income